ADR. Promoting dialogue.
It's midday in Dakar, 1 o'clock in Lagos. Good afternoon, and many thanks for staying tuned to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and worldwide on wadr.org. Welcome to Newslink, and here are the top stories. Nigerians defy government warnings, hold hardship demonstrations across the country.
We are fed up by the condition of hunger and hardship that President Tinubu has established in this country since May 29.
The hardship in Nigeria is extremely high. You know, people are literally committing suicide because they cannot afford to feed.
In Ghana, High Court grants injunction against 7-day Gen Z demonstration. Ghanaians react to the sentencing of Musa Dadis Kamara to 20 years in prison for crimes against humanity.
I am very satisfied. We know that this is both a historic and educational trial, a trial of mass crimes. We are very happy that the court has reclassified the facts in relation to crimes against humanity.
And 3 perpetrators of the second terrorist attack in Burkina Faso have been sentenced to life in prison. Please stay tuned for details of these stories and more.
Here is a more edit with Newslink.
Well, many thanks for joining us, and a warm welcome to our listeners in the Gambia, Ghana, Liberia, and Sierra Leone. Let's begin in Nigeria, where thousands of youth have poured into the streets in major cities across the nation to protest against economic hardship, despite the government's last-minute push to prevent the demonstration. Inflation has reached 34%, owing majorly to the twin policies of subsidy removal and floating of the naira that has pushed the cost of basic items beyond the reach of millions of Nigerians. Talks about the demonstration tagged #End Bad Governance protest had gained momentum on social media, leading discussions among young Nigerians on digital platforms. Authorities across the country had, in the wake of the calls for the protest, rallied around to halt it. President Bola Tinubu, governors, lawmakers, and traditional rulers had warned against the rallies and feared they might be hijacked by criminals. While they admitted to the challenges facing the nation, they urged the organizers to shelve the protests and give the government more time to address the issues raised. But undeterred, the Take It Back movement, one of the organizers of the protest, said it was not going back on the rallies. He had the views of some protesters.
We have marched for over 2 hours and we have also made those demands copiously. And the demands can be summarized in this manner. We are fed up by the condition of hunger and hardship that President Tinubu has established in this country since May 29, 2023. And we are saying enough is enough. Reverse all anti-people policy. Reverse all policies that have turned our people into slaves. We are demanding a better life for Nigerians. What we are doing now is to begin to establish the democratic organ of our struggle.
The most important thing right now, you know, because as you can see, the hardship in Nigeria is extremely high. You know, people are literally committing suicide because they cannot afford to feed their families, they cannot afford to, you know, provide for themselves. People are dying in hospitals because there's no bed space. They don't even have bed space in hospitals in Lagos to accommodate people, right? So it's very important at this particular time. The cost of doing business is extremely high. Students are dropping out of school because there's been extreme, you know, fee hike. It's unbearable. So that's why this protest is totally and is utmostly important right now.
I'm coming from First Stack. My son at 13 is the program. I can't even buy data for him to learn more. I can't even pay for the institution fee. Millions of naira. At 13, he can program them. Good luck, Benjamin is his name. My name is Ogu Benjamin Chidoke. So I'd rather die on the street than die at home. I can't sit down and watch the future of my son go to waste. I know I may not have safety again in Nigeria, but my son's future will not waste. What we are doing here is to the favor of the government. If they are listening government, if they have conscience, what we are doing is the best thing that citizens can do for their government, just to air their view so that you now know where you are working on. We are not against the government. We are trying to what? Give them the leeway to show them what we need. Not what they think we need. No. We want good governance, enabling education-wise. At least the futures of Nigeria are lying to waste.
Some Nigerians speaking there at the ongoing nationwide demonstration across the country. Meanwhile, one of the organizers of the nationwide protest in Nigeria say the demonstration will be held as planned in all states, including the capital city, Abuja. Take It Back movement mobilizing in the Federal Capital Territory denounces the countermeasures, including the security threats by authorities to prevent the rally. Planned for 10 days, the End Bad Governance March comes on the heels of the deteriorating social and economic conditions of Nigerians in the first year of President Bola Tinubu's administration. Well, let's cross over to Abuja, where our man Usman is on standby to bring us the update. Usman, quickly tell us where you are and the situation there.
Right now, I am at the Federal Secretariat, Abuja, where, of course, very, very close to the Eagle Square, what you can refer to as the hotbed in Abuja, because if you recall, some days back, the protesters on social media had written to the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory requesting or notifying him of their intention to use that venue, which, of course, as you know, in Nigeria, it is like the national venue for national events. But the minister said the letter was not properly routed and therefore could not grant access to that very facility. But as it were, as at yesterday evening, security personnel were seen, well armed, cordoned the area. Then, of course, as at this morning, generally, things picked up very slowly because most of the streets were deserted in Abuja. On my way to work, I could drive speedily and freely, but only for about 10 minutes, about 10 o'clock in the morning, of course, especially on Kubwa Express Road, one of the major entrances into the city. Of course, protesters were seen in their numbers making their way into town, some on inside vehicles, some actually, you won't believe it, were trekking. And they are trekking to the Eagle Square, which is about 38 kilometers from where I actually saw some of them. But then, as at now, this afternoon, as I speak with you, it's actually a tense situation, let me put it that way, because the security personnel at the Eagle Square cordoned off the area, denying entrance to the protesters. But defiantly, the protesters chanting slogans, hunger day, meaning there is hunger, and holding placards to actually pass the same and similar messages, of course, attempted to break into the Eagle Square by defying the police barricade. The same thing, feelers I got also from Lagos, where I spoke to colleagues, says that it's also going on smoothly for now, even though the numbers are still growing. But for now, I can tell you that things are moving on generally. Yes.
Please keep us posted and do stay safe out there.
I will. Thank you very much.
That was Amanda Usman Omar.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Well, let's take you to Ghana, where the fate of the Gen Z demonstration slated for July 31 to August 6 is in shambles as an Accra High Court has granted an injunction preventing the 7-day protest from taking place. This decision follows an application filed by the police service which raised concerns about public safety. From Accra, Nadiri Tite has more details in this report.
Although the organizers of the demonstration, Positive Transparency and Accountability Movement Ghana, Arise Ghana, and Alliance for Social Equality and Public Accountability, ASEPA Ghana, notified the police of their intentions, the police argued that if they allowed the demonstration, it could jeopardize the public order and disrupt essential services. The protest was expected to put not less than 2 million young people on the streets of Accra from July 31 to August 6, 2024. The objective of the protest is to demonstrate against the severe economic hardships affecting mainly the youth in the country, which is driving some of them into drug addiction and the threats of joining terrorist groups. Although the exercise is also to protect the heavy taxes the government has imposed on citizens, including the betting tax, COVID tax, sanitation tax, and increased taxes on internet data, among others. Organizers added that the protest is also to express Gen Z's disgust for the massive corruption and nepotism that have characterized the Akufo-Addo Bawumia administration. But with the police securing an injunction on the 1-month demonstration, one of the organizers, the executive director of ASEPA, Mensa Thompson, says they will file another request for the protests, insisting that they will persist until the police service complies.
Now, the DTT filed their report from Accra. Still in Ghana, the Affirmative Action Coalition, established to advocate for the enactment and passage of the Affirmative Action Bill AAB, has welcomed the bill's recent passage. This legislation, which had been pending for over a decade, aims to promote and progressively increase women's active participation in public life, with a target of achieving at least 30% female representation by 2030, in alignment with the Sustainable Development Goals (SDGs). In an interview with WADR lawyer Sheila Minka-Premo, the convener for the Affirmative Action Coalition expressed confidence that President Nana Akufo-Addo will support the bill. She also addressed and dispelled criticisms from the MP for Tamale South, who described the legislation as bad laws.
We are very elated that this bill has finally become law. The coalition, most of us were working individually as advocates pushing for this law. Some of us even served on the technical committee set up by the ministry to help with the drafting.
Bearing in mind that the president, in his first year in office, in fact, during his swearing in the early stages of his tenure, he mentioned that he was going to ensure that the Affirmative Action Bill was passed in his first year in office. It's happened eventually, but does the coalition feel that this could have come earlier?
Oh, definitely. We feel that this could have been done earlier, and they would have had the opportunity to get us working for a while. But as the saying goes, better late than never. I think that what I know is that as part of the member of the technical committee, anytime it goes to cabinet, they would also review it from a certain perspective, say this should be taken out. This is in the early drafts of it.
One of the things that have come up in all these conversations is that a lot of people keep referencing what former minority leader Haruna Idrisu, who is also the member of parliament for Tamale South, for instance, he has expressed some concerns with the bill where he says, in quote, it is a bad law because it does not address nor reflect the issues pertinent to the country, but rather concentrates more on matters in other African countries. What do you say to that?
I don't quite agree with Honorable Haruna. The starting point, yes, Ghana has signed international obligations, which indicates that they should try and also address gender equality issues. But our own constitution, our very own constitution, I've mentioned Article 17 already, and mentioned 17.4. 17.4 says that there should be no discrimination on the basis of gender. So you can't have a law which prefers one gender against the other. But the same 17 and subsection 4 says that, however, where historically it's been found that one particular gender has been discriminated against, in social, in whatever it is, economic, then it says there is nothing wrong. That's the language that is used. There is nothing wrong if Parliament passes a law to right the wrong.
From Guinea, there are reactions to the sentencing of Musa Dadis Camara to 20 years in prison for crimes against humanity. His conviction is the verdict of the September 28, 2009 trial. Also sentenced were Marcel Goulavagi to 18 years imprisonment and life imprisonment for Claude Pivi, who was then the Minister of Presidential Security, among others. The decision of the criminal court in Dixon has not, however, been received unanimous among the victims. While some welcome the verdict, calling it historic, others believe that the court was very lenient towards the accused. They have also called on the Guinean authorities to ensure their safety and to see that they are compensated. Here are two of them, Mamadou Kali Jallo and Fatoumata Bari, who spoke to our Conakry correspondent, Chano Afa Ibrahim Abaude.
I am very satisfied. We know that this is both a historic and educational trial, a trial of mass crimes. We are very happy that the court has reclassified the facts in relation to crimes against humanity. We say that it has been a fair and just trial, which aligns with the country's standards, and we hope that this will be the foundation for the fight against impunity, advice on governance issues, especially at the level of defense and security forces.
I am not happy. This means that the Guineans will indemnify us. We do not agree. We are not happy about that. The state must take its responsibilities. The court must take its responsibilities. And we appeal to the international community. The situation is serious. Protection of victims and security of victims. Our distances are clear. We want our protections and security for the victims. We really need this. We are not safe. We appeal to everyone to become a net for the victims who are sick.
Those were victims of the Guinean massacre, Mamadou Kali Jallo and Fatoumata Bari speaking there. Here in Senegal, President Bassirou Diomaye Faye has made new appointments into his government. The new appointments are at the Ministry of the Interior and Public Security and the Ministry of Hydraulics and Sanitation. This was during the Council of Ministers on Wednesday. Additionally, President Faye has promoted 10 senior police officers to new positions. Under the Minister of Hydraulics and Sanitation, Seni Jen, hydrogeological engineer, has been appointed Director General of ONAS, replacing Mr. Sheikh Jiang. You're listening to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Here is a reminder of our top stories. Nigerians defy government's warnings, hold hardship demonstrations across the country. In Ghana, High Court grants injunction against 7-day Gen Z demonstration. Guineans react to the sentencing of Musadadis Kamara to 20 years in prison for crimes against humanity. And still ahead, 3 perpetrators of the second terrorist attack in Burkina Faso have been sentenced to life in prison. We do have the press review, a guest interview segment, and sports news. Please stay with us.
You are listening to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal.
Don't forget, you can listen to us live on wadr.org, YouTube, and Facebook. And to Burkina Faso now, 3 perpetrators of the second terrorist attack in the country have been sentenced to life in prison. The files of a dozen people were presented at the Anti-Terrorist Judicial Unit of the High Court of Ouaga, the 2, for the terrorist attack in Samoroguan in October 2015. This left 3 dead, including a civilian. The trial, which began on July 22, delivered its verdict on Wednesday. Rose Samara Kate completes the story.
Before the Anti-Terrorist Judicial Division of the Ouagadougou High Court, all the accused pleaded not guilty. The 3 defendants are Lassina Sandara, Draman Sanu, and Boubacar Drame, who each received life imprisonments. Seidi Dembele, alias Benny, was sentenced for 5 years in prison and slapped with fine of 2 million CFA francs, all suspended. Also, the convicted must pay 70 million CFA francs to each of the victims. The court, however, sentenced the rest in absent with an arrest warrant issued against them. In total, 10 people were prosecuted in connection with the terrorist attack in Samoroguan, a few kilometers from the Malian border in the far west of Burkina Faso. This is the second terrorist attack after the one in April 2015. It left 3 dead, including 2 soldiers and a civilian. The 3 men were prosecuted for terrorist criminal association, murder, aggravated theft, illegal association with firearms, aggravated willful disruption of public and private properties, and illegal possession of firearms in connection with a terrorist enterprise. The trial, which began on the 22nd July, delivered its verdict on Wednesday, 31st July.
That was WDL's Martin Carver's report from Ouagadougou and voiced by Rose Samara Kate. And before we leave, Sierra Leone's Chief Minister David Moimina Senghor has called on Sierra Leoneans to support President Julius Maada Bio's Big 5 agenda, with a particular emphasis on the flagship initiative Feed Salon. Echatiso completes the story.
In the run-up to the June 23, 2023 general elections, President Bio's manifesto outlined his priorities across 5 key pillars: Feed Salon, youth employment, human capital development, public sector reform, and infrastructure and technology. Unlike his first term, which focused on free quality education, the current administration has prioritized Feed Salon, an agriculture-based program aimed at achieving food security. Chief Minister Senghor has elaborated that the Feed Salon is a centerpiece of the government's efforts, adding that it aims to ensure that Sierra Leone not only grows its own food, but also makes it affordable and accessible to all citizens. Achieving this goal is essential for the country's aspirations to reach middle income status by 2030. Senge urges Sierra Leoneans to actively support the Feed Salon program, asserting that its success will lead to significant economic improvements and better living standards across the nation.
Achatisa reporting there.
This is the newspaper review. Stay abreast and find out what the top stories are in your country.
This is the newspaper review.
The newspaper review.
Well, we head down to Monrovia as we join Darlington Popper for the newspaper review.
For this edition of Press Review, we begin with the front page Africa newspaper. Did Bouaka break the law? The paper is asking the question. Here we see the photographs of President Joseph Boakai and former President George Weah, suspended bank governor Aloysius Tallo, who's in charge of MPP. And the paper is asking the question here. We see the photograph of George Moba, who claims to be the chairman of the MPP, that's the National Patriotic Party, and former Vice President Ejuwe Howard Taylor, who also claimed to be the standard bearer of the National Patriotic Party. On the back page of the front page Africa newspaper is all about sports. We cross over now to the newspaper. Peaceful, but not weak. We are once against unlawful arrests. We see the photographs of former President George Weah and scores of his former officials and lawmakers on the front page of the newspaper. No foreign travels without approval as Bouaka's mandates officials. Bouaka appoints acting CBL governor, reactivates economic management team. On the back page of the newspaper, woman arrested with coach. A woman identified as Maya Mankenti, age 34, has been arrested with 5 plastic bags of coach and a tube of cocaine while visiting her brother at the Monrovia Central Prison Facility. The Daily Observer newspaper is now our last stop for today's edition of Press Review. CDC declares resistance against UP-led government's witch hunt. We see the photographs of former President George Weah and scores of his former officials and lawmakers on the front page of the Daily Observer newspaper. Henry Samoa appointed acting CBL governor amid financial scandal. On the back page of the Daily Observer newspaper, jailed ex-officials unable to secure $6 million United States dollars bond. Legal team reveals. Police arrest Assistant Minister Jabate over terrorist threats. On that note, that is how I would love to conclude today's edition of Press Review. But before we go, these are the newspapers we actually followed on today's edition. We followed the front page Africa newspaper, the newspaper, and the Daily Observer newspaper was our last stop. Thank you so much for following Press Review, and bye-bye.
Many thanks, Darlington Popper in Monrovia with a newspaper review.
Politics, analyses on major news, social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
Well, our guest this afternoon is Austin Igbe, an activist and governance expert. He reflects on the ongoing national demonstration by Nigerians against economic hardship despite the government's last-minute push to prevent the demonstration.
I will give it to the Nigerian government. They did everything, including blackmailing the protesters, including doing everything that include legal action. For instance, in Lagos, you are aware that the Attorney General of Lagos State went to seek the court injunction to restrict protesters to a certain location. The same thing was done in Abuja to restrict protesters to the stadium. You and I know that restricting protesters to the stadium will automatically downplay on the message or the impact of the protest. You expect that it is not blocking roads that will only be impactful. If the protester wanted to hang around the National Assembly or hang around the villa, for instance, you will expect that will gather more momentum. But getting the people to the stadium like as if it was a carnival, sort of as restrict and downplayed on it. But it also creates for itself externality. Because the more you restrict people to a certain location, the more they are likely to be violent. And the more other people who may not be interested in this protest may want to join. And before you know what's happening, this protest will expand.
We've seen a couple of measures being quickly put in place in the last couple of days to avert this protest. But it goes beyond the provision of bags of rice, the reduction in price of rice. What are the core things that the government should do? Because this youth are saying that they should overhaul the entire government, change the cabinet, bring in people-friendly policies that will favor the people and eventually the well-being of Nigerians. How would the government respond to this beyond sharing a bag of rice?
Okay, so let me, by way of historical perspective, the crisis we are in today has to do with bad policies. Sincerely, from the depth of my heart, President Tinubu made the biggest mistake on day one of assumption of office when he removed the fuel subsidy. He not only removed fuel subsidy, he created a scenario where the A&E was now in charge of the floating of the dollar. In fact, that was the policy, floating of the dollar. A floating dollar simultaneously with fuel subsidy removal was not in the best interest of Nigerians. Apparently, he thought using Adam Smith's model of invisible hand of demand and supply will address the issue, so the dollar will necessarily crash when there's low demand and all of that. But with the fuel subsidy removal, the demand for dollar increased.
That was Austin Igbe there. Let's join Sanko Janko with Sport News.
Hello, a very warm welcome and thank you for joining us. The Super Falcons recorded their third defeat in as many matches at the ongoing Women's Olympic Football Tournament Paris 2024 after being subjected to a 3-1 loss to Japan on Wednesday evening, according to CAF official website. With two of their opening matches against Brazil and Spain ending in defeat, the Super Falcons had a very slim chance of progressing to the knockout stages of the competition. However, with the backing of an expectant crowd at the Nan Stadium, the Super Falcons could not find their rhythm, with Japan capitalizing on their shortcomings to ultimately end their Paris 2024 journey. Japan opened their scoring account through Maika Hamano in the 22nd minute before Mina Tanaka's extension just minutes later. Jennifer Ejuni ignited a bit of hope for the West Africans, which was again dashed in stoppage time thanks to a late strike by Kitagawa Hakaru, who nailed the final lead to make it a 3-1 to the Japanese. The results officially puts Nigeria's Olympic journey to an unfortunate end. It was also the end of the road for Zambia's women national team in the Paris 2024 Olympics after a 4-1 defeat to Germany on Wednesday evening. Like Nigeria, Zambia failed to win a single match in the group stage of the women's tournament. The results also means Zambia are officially out of the Paris Olympic Games. And that's it for sports. It's back to you.
And that's it on this edition of Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Christian Mukudi and Maudaju for the technical support. Let's keep the conversation coming on all of our social media platforms, X, formerly Twitter, Instagram, at WADR News, and of course Facebook, West Africa Democracy Radio, English service. Coming up at the bottom of the hour is a flagship environment program, Enviroscope. I am Imo Edet. Good afternoon.
And many thanks to you for listening to Newslink via Hot 104.3 FM, Newmi FM 94.0,
Hilltop Radio 104.7 FM,
and Veritas Radio.